Hi, and welcome to the show. Rate and review at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today in the show, we have Kevin Haselhorst. He's an emergency physician and he's the author of the book, Wishes to Die For, Expanding Upon Doing Less in Advanced Care Directives. His Kevin MD article that we're going to talk about today is titled, Can Medicare Advanced Directives Be Simple? Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it.
We'll get into your article in a little bit. First off, briefly share your story and journey to where you are today.
Well, I grew up in a small town in Illinois, trained in St. Louis and the Southern Illinois University, where I went to medical school. Ultimately did internal medicine recidency in St. Louis, and then after 8 years of working in the emergency room, I moonlighted there after my residency there. And then I worked in the ER there for about 8 years, and then I moved to Arizona, and I've been here for approximately 25 years now.
All right. So in a lot of your Kevin MD articles, they deal with advanced directives. You've written a book on advanced directives. From your experience in the emergency department, just paint us a picture of how advanced directives come into play in the ER setting.
They're extremely confusing because most times people don't know what's in their advanced directive. It's not necessarily found. It's very unhelpful. And Sean Morrison did a perfect relay last year, and he's saying how they haven't served us in the last 30 years. And I can attest to that. On the receiving end of these advanced directives, they don't really provide me the guidance I need. And we need to simplify them so that I know what people really want at the time that they're making life and death decisions.
So when you say that sometimes living wills or advanced directives don't tell you as an emergency physician the information you need at that moment, can you give me a story, case study, or an example of that would illustrate that?
Oh, the person comes in from the nursing home and they're septic. Their quality of life is already compromised. And I would back and the normal standard of care is we'd intubate them to the ICU, we put them on pressors, and I'm kind of, after writing the book, I'm realizing I don't think this is what people really want. I think we should have a conversation first before I just dive in. And so that's been my practice in some respects, providing palliative care conversations before I dive in and try to resuscitate them. So, you know, when an advanced directive, but they will always want something done because it's not right if you don't do something to save their life. And the challenge is that saving their life adds to more misery. So I'm up against a wall in terms of wanting to provide care, but them realizing that the care I provide is not in their best interest. So it really is important for people to be able to tell me, because I can't tell them what to wish for. They need to tell me what their wishes are so I can grant them.
So you're saying that sometimes patients would come to the emergency department with, say, some type of advanced care directive, but in that acute setting, that patient or the patient's family may want you as the emergency physician to do something.
Yes, here's the deal. There was just a JAMA Network article that came out, Death and End-of-Life Care in Emergency Departments. And it basically gives the stunning statistic that if you're over 80 years old, the chance of you dying within 1 month is 1 out of 12 people will die within 1 month of their presenting to the ER. That to me should be a wake-up call for anybody over 80 when somebody is calling 911. Do you know what your wish is at this point? Because most people don't know, most people are too beside themselves. They get their fear in front of their wishes, so they don't quite remember what the intention was when things go south. This is a huge wake-up call, and that's what prompted my article that really said, okay, we need to talk about this, because this is what I'm experiencing is these people are not having a conversation, and Medicare can actually provide this conversation during enrollment. They can encourage people to look at the 3 options that I'm presenting. But well, first I want to say, when people come to the emergency room, what do people wish from me? They either want a standard treatment, they want uncompromising compassion, or they want personal empowerment. Standard practice, uncompromising compassion, personal empowerment. Huge wishes and very heart-centered. You don't know what you want until you look inside your heart to know what's important at that moment. And so again, you're over 80 years old and you're having a heart attack, a stroke, sepsis, organ failure, trauma. I'm going to grant you 3 wishes, but you can only choose one. You can't mix them up. It's either inpatient medical treatment, it's homebound comfort care, or it's outpatient palliative services. Those 3 wishes need to be sat with so people, when they're filling out their Medicare enrollment, have some idea of what's important to them, what they value.
So like you said, this is a topic that you talk about in your Kevin MD article. Can Medicare advance directives be simple? Now, in your ideal world, walk us through your workflow that you would like to see when patients enroll in Medicare.
You start out with the process of, I don't know. So my yoga instructor would say, uncertainty is my path to freedom. Freedom means having an open mind during open enrollment. Only an open mind can make an informed decision. So part of this problem is we become a polarized society, and each of us have become polarized in our own way. We hear what we want to hear. We see what we want to see. I'm asking you during this period of light, 'tis the season, to open your mind to the possibility that in the next year you might be confronted with an end of life decision. What are your choices? You could die within a month. What do we need to know? So again, I would say at the end of the year, we talk about examining your life. You want to examine your life before you enroll in Medicare. And this is a good opportunity for you to declare your wishes at that point and that align with your values. So that's part of the thing is you're going to come up with one decision. You're going to sit with these 3 options and you're going to say, what makes the most sense to me if something happens, given my quality of life at this point?
And to reiterate, what would those 3 options be?
Inpatient medical treatment, homebound comfort care, outpatient palliative care, palliative services. You know, Pele has been dealing with this in the media right now. He stopped treatment for colon cancer. And so there's this question about, is he on palliative care? Is he on comfort care? We don't have a common language around what's occurring, how we describe the care that he's receiving, because it's extremely confusing to people because these comfort care and palliative care are not separated. They're lumped together oftentimes, and that does a huge disservice to people.
So currently we have these welcome to Medicare visits that I do as a primary care physician, and one component of that is to talk about advanced care directives. How is what you're proposing different from what I'm doing in these welcome to Medicare visits?
Well, you're giving them a menu of options to choose from. A lot of these are put in poll starters or most starters, where people will select out from a menu of options. Do you want the feeding tube? Do you want the respirator? Do you want IV fluids? Do you want antibiotics? And people will piecemeal these wishes into some sort of a form. And then my medical protocols aren't based on patients' menu of options. I have to follow the medical. If I'm going to go all in, I need to follow a protocol that's standardized and that I can defend in court. I can't defend in court that I chose certain things over other things and didn't abide by the standard of care. So I'm kind of up against a wall in terms of how I would normally treat a person versus how they may wish to be treated, but they don't quite have the whole information to know that sometimes you need to include IV fluids with antibiotics to make them effective.
So tell us a story or a hypothetical case study. Let's say we implemented your system where if a patient applies to Medicare, they have to choose from one of the 3 options that you suggested. Tell me a hypothetical of that happening and then that patient coming to the emergency department and already having these choices pre-selected. Tell me a success story in your mind.
A woman comes in with a hemorrhagic bleed in her brain. She's basically in a semi-comatose. Her husband Doesn't even say he's her husband. He identifies himself as the medical power of attorney, her medical power of attorney, which I thought was stunning. I've never seen anybody introduce themselves that way. So he was already on target, knowing this is a life-threatening situation. I'm going to be involved in her care. And so we determined she does have a bleed in her brain by the CAT scan. I'm on the phone calling the tertiary neural center saying, we have this patient that needs to be transferred. He's like, wait a minute, what will her quality of life be after this bleed? And I'm saying it won't be the same. And he says, I don't want her transferred. And I'm like, I hang up the phone and I'm kind of dumbfounded because I have not seen that kind of proactive energy coming from a family member, a husband who's losing his wife and being able to have the courage to make the decision to let's not do something to affect her suffering or challenge her or make life miserable for her. I go back into the room and I explain to her that her husband and I have talked to talk this out. The dust is settled. This is what's going on, and we've decided it's in your best interest to kind of keep you comfortable. And she goes, Doctor, I trust you. So that broke my heart to know that the amount of effort I put into the years of sort of thinking about this and really supporting this man in his decision, because he could have easily been derailed and somebody could have said, no, we have to do this. We have to save her life. And I tell you, other family members came in and they questioned, Doctor, shouldn't we be doing something more than just letting her die? And I'm like, well, her self-determination, according to her husband, was, if this happens, I'm to die. And so to honor that wish was not, it's always unsettling in many respects, but it was actually very joyous to know that we honored her in a way that many people do not get honored.
Tell us what happens if their wishes aren't honored, someone gets intubated, perhaps against their advance directives and living will. Tell us what happens next in a lot of cases.
Well, in a lot of cases, it's, well, let's wait and see. There's a lot of hedging because once you've entered that realm of care, you feel like you're killing the person by taking them off the ventilator. So it is kind of backtracking in terms of, not providing hope at this point and recognizing that if we're going to provide compassion, we need to withdraw care. Now, it's nice if we can withhold care and we don't have to make the decision about withdrawing care. And I told one family member in particular that I remember, if you make the decision to put her on the ventilator, you will make the decision to take her off the ventilator. Do you really want to make that decision to end her life, or do you want nature to end her life at this point? They decided not to put her on the ventilator because they didn't want to take that responsibility.
So what do you anticipate as the path forward? I think that you had mentioned we do live in a polarized society. Sometimes if you invoke advanced care directives in connection with Medicare, some people may say death panels. How do you propose a path forward in our current political environment?
Well, you have to make people understand that this is in their best interest. And it will take an act of Congress to force Medicare to comply with the self-determination, that we ask people to declare what their wishes are, that you be self-determined in your end-of-life care journey. So Medicare will have to make people complete advanced directives during enrollment, so we have that information on board. And that Medicare and that wish should be, their registration number, their Medicare number should end in A, B, or C. I know if they want medical treatment. I know if they want comfort care. I want to know if they want palliative services. A, B, C. That's simple enough. I don't need to go searching any website and looking for papers in the freezer, where they're hidden. We don't, at the refrigerator, wherever it's hidden, we don't need to look. And we don't have this confusion around a DNR being an advanced directive, which is just, again, we don't use common sense in these situations, and we don't get great results because we're not using common sense.
We're talking to Kevin Haselhorst. He's an emergency physician. His Kevin MD article is titled, Can Medicare Advance Directives Be Simple? Kevin, what are some of your take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
The U.S. ranks 43rd in quality end-of-life care. There was a recent article just that documented this. I want people to join my crusade for Medicare Advanced Directives. Sign on to mad-act.com. Find out what I'm doing to ask Congress to pass this law to make Medicare have seniors completed medical directives during enrollment.
Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your time and insight, and thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.